If we're going to train a horse, the first thing we have to do is be able to catch it. I teach catching in a round pen. Put this filly out here in the fence and let her work around for a period of time until she starts showing me signs that she's interested in coming to me and paying attention to me. Those signs are that she'll lower her head as she moves around the pen. She may cock an ear toward me. She'll start looking toward me. And she may even start to lick her lips. When I see that, then I start reversing the filly on the rail. I'll teach her both an outside and an inside turn on the fence. To do an outside turn, I focus on her shoulder and walk toward the shoulder point, and you'll see that she'll turn and she'll reverse to the outside. I also want to teach this filly to turn to the inside, because it's the inside turn I'm going to use to start teaching her to stop and to let me catch her. So I'll look at her nose when I try to turn to the inside. And as she turns, here she stopped before I want her to, so I'll keep her moving. As she comes back around, I'll look toward her nose, step toward the fence, and you'll see that this filly will stop, turn toward me, and stop. I'll walk up to the filly. Here she hooks onto me. We call this hooking on, and follows me into the center of the pen. You're not going to find that your horse will do this the first time. It took a half hour with this filly the first time I trained her. And usually when you go out to them the first time, they'll take off the other direction, and that's fine. You work them some more, start reversing them again, and pretty soon they'll stop, turn, look towards you, and then hook onto you and go to the center. Here she lost her attention. She's going back out to the fence. That's okay. Don't get upset or frustrated. I'll just go out. I'll turn her again. She stops. I don't walk directly at her. I walk off to the side. As soon as she starts to move, then I turn. She hooks on, and we walk to the center of the pen. Now we're going to put the halter on. When I put a halter on a horse or a bridle or either any type of headgear, I want them to look toward me as I put that into place. The reason for that is if she would start moving or start running or bucking or carrying on at this point, that since her hind legs will be the opposite direction of her head, she's not going to kick me. And so I remain safe. Then we're going to take the filly, once we got her haltered up, and we're going to practice touching her all over her body. She'll be able to touch all the 5 zones without any difficulty whatsoever, and she should stand there and let me handle her body totally. After we've done this, I usually will do most of my teaching in the round pen at first until where I know I have good control. But today, because our round pen is dusty, and you'd see a cloud of dust on the video instead of me, we're going to take the filly out into a grassy area to work. So she lets me handle her here. Let's go to the grass. Now that we're out here on the grass, we're going to review our touch training again so that we can touch the horse from head to tail. Then we're going to go into what we call sensitivity training. There are 3 types of cues that are going to be used in sensitivity training. We're to use physical pressure cues, which means we use our hands or the lead or halter to create physical body pressure to make a horse either move their feet or to give their body to us. The second type of cue will be rhythmic or motion pressure, because horses respond to movement around them, and often that will cause them to move their body or move their legs as well. And then the third level of pressure will be dominance pressure, and this pressure is simply that just because we look at them sternly or we move toward them, that they get out of our way because they have learned to respect our space. I'm going to start off here with this physical pressure by putting our hand on the horse's nose. We're going to put 4 ounces of pressure on the nose and ask them to back up. And the important thing is as soon as they make that step back, we take our hand off. So we touch, she moves, we release. Pretty soon we can have her move back quite easily. However, they're not always going to move back with a real light cue. Sometimes they'll do like this little filly did there and resisted. I went to a second level cue of pinching the nasal bones. Third level cue was to squeeze a little harder. Fourth level cue could be actually shut the filly's wind off, so she'd have to do something pretty soon to move in order to gain comfort. They want to be comfortable, so they'll learn to move back with the very light touch, and here I exaggerate, showing the release with each step. The next type of pressure cue we're going to use is for lateral movement. Here we're going to apply our hands in zones 1 and 3 to get our horse to move her body around her haunches. The level of cues here is we touch them very, very light, like we're touching the hair. When that doesn't work, we put a little more pressure. Here I press on the skin. If that wouldn't have worked, I'd have went to pushing on the muscle. If that wouldn't have worked, then I think about pushing on the bone. In other words, I'm putting a lot of force into get the horse to move over. You always start off light with every cue, but don't hesitate to get more forceful. At first, you may have to go to that fourth level cue and really push to get this filly to move off for you. So don't hesitate to go up through the cues, but we want to get it so it's very, very light as this filly is becoming. Next type of pressure cue we're going to use is by way of our lead rope. And we're going to use our lead rope swinging at the horse's haunches to get him to move the rear end over. Now this filly has done this a while, so she's moving just me looking at her rear flank. And that is the first level of cue. That's a dominance pressure cue. If that doesn't work, then we use motion of the rope swinging at her hip. And if that wouldn't work, we'd have to tap her with the lead rope on her rear flank, and then maybe even hit her fairly briskly. The first time you do this, be prepared to actually have to hit them to get them to move over. But very quickly she'll learn to respond by just looking at that hind quarter and moving it over. Now let's do some training exercises that use this. The first exercise I call the send and return exercise. I want her to learn to respond to light pressure in this halter to move back off of pressure. Eventually, when we put a bit in her mouth, she'll need to back off with the light rein pressure in her face as well. So we're going to back her up. Now I start her with the hand motion, and I use rhythmic motion here with my finger wiggling at her and the rope wiggling. With the lead rope, to get her started, I would wiggle from my wrist, which gets the rope moving. And then if that wouldn't work, we'd have to go. So our first level was wiggling with the rope. Second level was start swinging that rope, get the moving on her face, swinging from the elbow. If that wouldn't work, I'd use my whole arm and swing from the shoulder and really get movement on this filly's face, and eventually she'll back up. Of course, you want her to get to the point that she just listens. Here I'm looking at her sternly, using a little rhythmic motion by throwing the rope out there. There she did something that she needed to be corrected for, and as she looked off, I want the filly always to back up with both eyes on me. Then I asked her to come forward very gently by using the lead rope, combing it through my hands. And when she comes up to me, I'll pet her and say she's a good girl and give her some reward. Now, another thing we can teach in this little game, in addition to the send and returning, is that we can teach her a little bit of respect. See, she likes to push into my space a little too much, and so I'm going to send her back. And when she comes up, I'm going to use an arm block, sticking my arm out at her so she tends not to come on too far forward. And also I'm going to wiggle the rope a little on her face, which is the backup cue, to teach her to stop at a decent distance from me. Now the next little exercise we're going to do is called flex the neck and move the hips laterally. We want to get this filly that she'll give her face to us gently to the side and then relax. And when she does, I give her some petting. I pick up with pressure on the rope. She gives, give her slack. Good girl, pet her a little bit. Want her to do this on both sides, so we will step to the off side as well and repeat it. We're looking for the horse to give us a baby give, in other words, just give the nose a little bit off to the side, and then also the deep give, which is all the way over to the flank area. We'll go back to the other side. Now we're going to add a little more to this. We're going to get her to give her nose, give it deeply. Then I'm going to turn and look toward the rear flank, lift my left hand up over her wither, and she moves her haunches over. I'm driving her around just by my dominant pressure going toward her. If that doesn't work, I will swing the rope, add a little physical pressure. I want her to learn to flex her head and to move the haunches over very quietly. As she goes around here, you actually see she wants to step through here. She doesn't want to stay that way, but I'm blocking her with the elbow. We're going to here again block her, and then we'll let her step on through. Blocking with my elbow, driving around this circle, drop my hand. See, she steps over to me. We're going to take it another step further now. We're driving her away from us just by dominant pressure. I'm going to drop my elbow here in a second. The filly steps across. Now I'm going to use rhythmic motion in my hands to keep the shoulder gone. She steps forward. I bump her back a little bit. I ask her to step forward with rhythmic motion. I actually have to go back to a little physical touch there to move her over, a little physical pressure. And eventually she'll get real good at this. We'll go back the other way, see how she is on this side. Horses are usually better one side than the other. I drop my elbow, and with rhythmic pressure, she moves very easily around her haunches. Eventually, I won't have to use the rhythmic pressure. I'll just walk toward her, and the dominance pressure of myself going forward will do the job. Next exercise is lunging. I stand in a circle about 2 foot in diameter, and I send her out away from me. If she wouldn't go out on her own accord, I would swing the end of the lead rope toward her throat lash to get her going. And once she's out there, if I need to energize her to move her forward, I'd swing the rope then toward her haunches to drive her forward. I'm going around here with her, rotating myself, staying in my little 2 foot circle. And I want her to give her nose to the inside to give me respect. And if she doesn't do that, I'll bump her and bring it in. Another way of handling the rein is to keep it and just exchange it behind your back like this once the filly gets gone. Now, some horses get out here and they get more and more excited and go faster and faster, and we don't want that to happen. Those type of horses, I'll let go around me only about 2 to 4 cycles, and then I'll stop them and start them again. And you'll find the horse that's getting excited, if you start and stop them often, that pretty soon they learn to stay quiet and more relaxed. She's going around here real nice on a loose lead between myself and her. I don't want my horse pulling on me. If they pull on me, I'm to pull back and then release them. They must learn to do this totally free. Again, exchange the rope behind my back. And stop her. She learned that moving her haunches over by looking at her, and so our stop on our lunge circle is quite easy at this point. Now we're going to start her to the right. I pretend like I'm standing in the center of a face of a clock. She's at 12 o'clock. I point to 4. The first cue to go out is my hand pointing the way, and because she's learned to give the light pressure on the halter, she moves forward when I do that. As she goes around here, again, she's staying pretty light. I like to have her nose in a little bit more sometimes. One of the things you don't want to do when you're doing this is you don't want to put your arm up over the top of your head like this to have the horse go around. If they would bolt on the back side, they could tear your arm right out of the socket, and no one wants that. So keep your hands down, reverse behind your back, or rotate with the horse as she goes around. Here she stopped. When a horse stops in a circle, you just very simply start him again. Pretty soon they learn that stopping and starting is more work than continuing to move, and so they will continue to move. Also, horses make the same mistake on a circle at the same place every time. So if you see a spot where they tend to stall out, at that point, give them a little encouragement and drive them through that point, and you'll find pretty soon that those bad spots disappear and the horse continues on the circle. Give her a little petting for reward for doing a good job. This next part is called desensitivity training. We had sensitivity training, now we want to do desensitivity training. For this, I put the halter and lead rope on the horse. I usually stand with a wall behind me or a fence behind me so the horse cannot go around me. I want them to stand facing the thing that's going to excite them. I want them to stand there on a loose lead rope. I want them to stand still. Now I let them move a little bit if they want to with their feet and move around for a little while, and eventually I want them to get quiet. I start using the whip way out to the side so it's not as threatening to them, and then bring it closer and closer to their body. I also then will use a lot more vigor and hit the ground very strong and try to create a lot of noise and commotion and see if I can still have her stand still. And you see here, I'm hitting the ground pretty hard. You see the dust fly. The filly's standing there. She's wiggling her head a little bit, but standing still. Then I swing it over top of her head and have her stand quietly till she stands quietly for that to happen. Then I finish up a little bit, but just letting the rope droop over her body, let her know I'm not going to hurt her in any way, shape, or form. There are other desensitivity things you could do, such as having a plastic bag in the end of a whip that you shake. You could have them stand in front of an audience for them to clap until they stand still. Desensitize your horse. This little exercise is built off a desensitivity exercise. I call this have faith in the handler, or the faith exercise. I want a horse to realize that I won't ever ask them to go through something that they aren't able to do, whatever I send them through, it's not going to hurt them. A lot of horses by nature are claustrophobic. They don't like to go through tight spots. So I started about 10 foot off the fence with this filly and got her to go back and forth between in front of me through the tight spot. And I've narrowed it down to about 4 foot now, and I'll keep going till I'm down to about 3. Again, notice I don't, there she bumped into me, and I'll bump her a little bit here and tell her to get her attention on me. Ask her to go through. I don't let her go all the way around me. For that, she would be running off from the thing that she's afraid of. The thing that scares her is going through that spot right in front of me, and as soon as she gets a little scared, I want her to turn and face what she was being excited about, so that she gets quieter and quieter as she goes through here. She's getting quite good at this point. So you can also push them through other tight spots, under tree limbs, whatever. Teach a horse to go wherever you ask them to go. And pretty soon they'll have confidence and faith in you and your handling, that you won't get them in a situation they'll be hurt, and they'll be willing to go. This is built off of that exercise. Occasionally people like to teach a horse to jump on a lunge line. And so now I'm just sending her over this little rail laying on the fence, doing the exact same thing I did with the last exercise, the faith exercise. And pretty soon I could move this rail out away from the fence and out in the middle of the arena if I want to. I want to learn to go over those things, not get excited. If she gets excited, immediately turn, face the part that excited her, and go across. We also can use this to send a horse into a trailer. Imagine if a trailer was parked there where the rail is, that I could take her up to the trailer, and because she's used to me sending her over things, she would go into the trailer. This last exercise we're going to do on the ground with the horse is lateral exercise. I want my horse to be able to move laterally on the ground at a side pass, just like she would when we ride. If she can do this on the ground, on top it would not be a difficult thing. I use my left hand to block zone 1, as you'll see here in a little bit. I use my guide stick in a rhythmic motion, ideally to make her move her body sideways. I have to go to some physical pressure here because she doesn't move, and so I'll tap her, or tap whatever part of her body necessary to make her move on over. Here she's moving fairly good. She's a little apprehensive yet and still not real good at it, so we need to repeat it again. Now this filly's had this done with only about 5 times, and I did that on purpose because I want you to see what goes wrong. They always go better one way than the other, and this is her problem way. She can't seem to figure out how to step her feet across. She backs up, she gets nervous. Just stay with them, be patient, try to get a couple good steps, and when she makes, there's a step, not too bad, we'll stop, let her relax, let her get her mind quiet again. Let's go back the other way, see if we've gotten any better. There she keeps trying to squeeze between the fence and me. I have to use my left hand up there to block her. Have to tap her a few times. Have to block the front again there a little bit, say, don't run into my hand. But she's stepping across herself better this time and moving on down the fence without as much frustration. Let's see what the other side's like. Going to ask her to move laterally back. This time she's not quite as nervous. The lead shank has a little more slack in it. She seems to be learning to step across, but still does take several more tries until this filly will get real comfortable with this. But I would venture to say within about 20 more repetitions the filly will get quite good. Send her back to the right this time. She's got a loose shank between my hand and myself. She's listening to rhythmic pressure. I don't have to actually touch her with the guide stick. Good job. Look how she steps her left legs across in front of the right. That's what we want. Time for reward. Rubber. Thank her.